House of Representatives begins debate on 2019 budgets today. Former Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Adeshola Mosu forfeits 2.2 billion naira to federal government. In international news, Theresa May survives no confidence vote. And in sport, Qatar, FIFA to decide on 48-team World Cup in March.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammad Buhari says he has been so careful not to engage the military in the fight against corruption. The president says he's aware the tenets of democracy allows for provision of strong evidence before alleged cases could be prosecuted successfully in court. Buhari spoke on Wednesday during a town hall meeting aired on national television. The president was also asked about major allegations against members of his cabinet, using as an example the case of a former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, who has not been tried despite a petition. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says Lawal's case was before the EFCC and a directive has been issued before his trial. Osinbajo also said all cases involving members of the cabinet referred to the EFCC would receive attention. House Speaker Yakubu Dogara has confirmed the lower chamber will kick off debates on the proposed 2019 appropriation bill. He said in a statement that the budget debate would have started on Wednesday, but had to be moved in honor of late Abayomi Ayeola, who is from APC in Lagos State, who died in December. Dogara says all lawmakers should get a copy of the proposed budget ahead of the commencement of debates today. President Muhammadu Buhari had presented in December a 9 trillion naira budget proposal to the National Assembly. Presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, says he would appoint a new central bank governor and float the naira if he wins next month's election. Abubakar says Godwin Emefiele is not doing a good job and has not pursued the right policies. Abubakar says under Emefiele, who was appointed in 2014, Nigeria has tightened capital controls and closely managed the naira's value. The governor has consistently said this is the best way to curb inflation and boost manufacturing by discouraging imports. The country now has a system of multiple exchange rates, which several foreign investors have criticized. But Central Bank spokesman Isaac Okorafor says Atiku Abubakar does not have his facts straight. Acting Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu has warned that the law would not be lenient with any officer or member of the force who is involved in unethical conduct. Adamu blamed the mess in the force on bad leadership and says it's set to change the image of the Nigerian police. Adamu says the forthcoming elections is an avenue for the Nigerian police to put into effect professionalism and commitment. The police boss also promised to address the welfare of personnel and other matters that have concerned the force.
To make sure that free and fair and credible election takes place in Nigeria, and we are going to build up on the strategies put in place to also make sure that we have hitch-free election.
The Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered a former Chief of Air Staff, retired Air Marshal Adeshola Mosu, to permanently forfeit to the federal government the 2 billion naira found in his possession by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. A former Air Force Director of Finance and Budget, Air Commodore Olubenga Gbadebo, was equally ordered to permanently forfeit to the federal government almost 200 million naira recovered from him. Also forfeited was 100 million naira recovered from Solomon Enterprises, a company linked to Amosu. Justice Mojisola Olatoregun ordered the forfeiture funds be paid into the federal government's treasury single account within 14 days. The federal government has ordered a restriction on 5 bank accounts belonging to the embattled Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Norham. The first national spokesperson for the coalition of United Political Parties, Imo Ugochinyere, made copies of the letter available to journalists at a press conference in Abuja on Wednesday. The letter, signed by Biodun Aikomo, on behalf of the Attorney General of the Federation, asked that normal banking operations be restricted on the CJN's account at Standard Chartered Bank pending final determination of the case against the CJN. But the Nigerian Bar Association, the CUPP and some legal luminaries have faulted the AGF's directive. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says blocked leakages in the country's oil and gas downstream sector is valued at more than 300 billion naira per year at the official exchange rate of 307 naira to $1. The corporation said the leakages were blocked to the business operations conducted in Nigeria's downstream oil sector. This has made it possible for the country to save about 1 billion naira. The downstream sector of the oil and gas industry deals with the refining of crude oil and the processing and purifying of raw natural gas, as well as the marketing and distribution of products derived from crude oil and natural gas. The oil firm also stated that it has made significant efforts in debt recovery from traders indebted to the corporation through reconciliations, payments are set off where necessary, and had reviewed credit policies to protect revenues. The Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation, increased by 11.44% year-on-year in December. The December 2018 CPI inflation report, released on Wednesday by the National Bureau of Statistics, shows all the divisions that contribute to the headline index increased. Now, this is the first time in 7 months that inflation would reach such levels. The last time the index was this high was in May last year at 11.66%. The Consumer Price Index measures the average change over time in prices of goods and services consumed by people day to day. Coming up, African stories. ICC judges reject request to keep ex-Ivorian leader Gbagbo in jail. And later, international news. Theresa May survives no confidence vote.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In news across Africa, refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons towards durable solutions to forced displacement is a theme of just concluded 32nd Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, AU, which kicked off with the 37th ordinary session of the Permanent Representatives Committee on Tuesday at AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. AU Commission Deputy Chairperson Kwesi Kwoti, speaking on behalf of the AU Commission Chairperson Dr. Mustafaki Mohammed, noted that the African Union Commission has been undergoing far-reaching, sweeping and progressive reforms for the past few months. He said gender parity is top on the agenda of leadership, transparency, openness, good governance and rule of law both within the Commission as well as in Ethiopia. Kwati also emphasized the need for these reforms to help work together and enhance the cooperation of member states in order to achieve the targets set for the Commission. He said the pillar of this process is the Permanent Representative Committee. The PRC meeting is one of 3 statutory meetings held under the 32nd Summit of the African Union. The second meeting is that of the Executive Council, to be held in February. The final meeting of the summit will be of the heads of state and government, also in February. International Criminal Court (ICC) has accepted prosecutors' appeal to extend former Ivorian leader Laurent Gbagbo's stay in custody following his acquittal on charges of crimes against humanity. The ICC freed him on Tuesday and ordered his immediate release, but judges said on Wednesday Gbagbo will stay behind bars, arguing that he might abscond. The former leader had been charged with crimes against humanity in connection with violence following the disputed 2010 election that led to 3,000 dead and 500,000 displaced. He's the first former head of state to go on trial at the ICC. He was captured in 2011 in a presidential palace bunker by UN and French-backed forces supporting his rival, Alassane Ouattara. Uganda is on high alert following the Ebola outbreak in neighboring Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. Response teams have been placed on the border to stave off any spread of the deadly virus into Uganda. Ebola is a rare disease spread by direct contact with blood or bodily fluids of an infected persons. The outbreak in the DRC has become the second deadliest in history, with almost 700,000 reported cases. More than half of the people confirmed with the disease have died. To prevent its spread in Uganda, Ebola screening has been made mandatory for everyone going into the country from the DRC.
We are trying to control Ebola by disinfecting the feet when somebody is coming from Congo, hand washing, screening, and then we allow the person to go.
Increased vigilance by the humanitarian organizations working with the Red Cross has ensured no outbreak has been reported in Uganda. But the volatile security situation in the eastern provinces of the DRC continues to pose a challenge in the fight against Ebola. The Zimbabwe Association of Doctors for Human Rights says it has treated 68 cases of gunshot wounds during the protest that has taken over the country. The doctors group says more than 100 other cases of assault with sharp objects, butted feet, baton sticks, and more have been recorded during the protest. The group's report also said other cases of police dog bites and alleged dragging of patients to court with life-threatening conditions. Protests against what is now the world's most expensive gasoline has crippled Zimbabwe for days. The government has blamed the opposition for the unrest and says more than 600 protesters have been arrested. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has said in a tweet he is deeply saddened by what he calls wanton violence and cynical disruption during these days of protests. We'll take a break. I'll be back with Global News. Stay with us. When we return, international stories. Theresa May survives no confidence vote and later supports Qatar FIFA to decide on 48-team World Cup in March.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
After 5 long days of dogged debate, the vote when it came was devastating. A majority of 230 against Theresa May's Brexit deal, a parliamentary defeat unprecedented in scale, and leaving Brexit in unresolved lockdown.
And she's now got to go on as the Prime Minister and try and put together some sort of cross-party consensus in a very divided Westminster Parliament on some kind of Brexit deal that can command a majority of MPs on both sides of the House. And that's going to be an incredibly difficult balancing exercise, and it's very hard to see how she gets that majority without splitting her own party.
May's dilemma is that from a yes or no, in or out referendum, there are now as many versions of Brexit as there are members of Parliament. And as she's lost control of her party and her Parliament, it's very difficult to say where this adventure is going and ultimately where it'll end up.
Brent Weckworth is a stay-at-home dad these days.
Right now, I read a lot of news. I want to know more of why I'm in the situation that I'm in, why my family's in this situation. You know, why is my work, well, why doesn't it matter?
Weckworth is one of more than 4,000 Federal Aviation Administration employees who inspect and certify general aviation and commercial aircraft, pilots, flight instructors, and repair stations. They've all been grounded by the U.S. government shutdown.
I've been with the FAA for 18 years. I started working on my first airplane when I was 13.
Phil Potter inspects air ambulances. He's also out of work.
Well, I'm not pleased. I wish I was out there doing my job.
The political stalemate over President Trump's attempt to beef up U.S.-Mexico border security with a wall is a slap, some say, at workers who are entrusted with helping keep the skies safe.
We should be working. We should be out there doing what we get paid for to make sure that aviation's safe.
I think that it's creating a lot more problems than it's solving.
Tom Delgado trains air traffic controllers, most of whom, because they're considered essential employees, remain on the job without pay. But workers who provide control towers with weather data and fix equipment, and trainees who help share the workload are not around, and he says that hurts.
If we have computer glitches and we don't have enough technicians to fix it, it could get really ugly. It makes everybody else who's fully certified their job more difficult.
Besides safety, aviation professionals are also very concerned right now about the basics, putting food on the table, the impact the government shutdown has on their families.
By the end of the month, I'll be in trouble.
Potter will miss one paycheck and has only one option, he says, if he misses any more.
Well, I'm going to have to look for a job.
It's pretty tough when you're sitting there and you're working on a lot of airplanes, and then you have to go home, and your wife will say, or your significant other will say, so are we going to get paid? And you have to tell them no.
Most previous government shutdowns ended relatively quickly. He and others in this critical industry worry this time could be different.
It was the Cubs' one-year birthday, and the zookeepers prepared a special cake to mark the occasion. But the cub remains almost totally dependent on her mother's milk and showed little interest in the birthday treat. She still managed to entertain the visitors, though.
I did. I googled it, and we arrived specially for 14th for the birthday to see the cake and the panda.
Panda pair Liang Liang and Xing Xing arrived in Malaysia in May 2014 and set a world record for the fastest natural reproduction in captivity with the birth of their first cub, Nuan Nuan. Then no sooner had Nuan Nuan been separated from her mother in preparation for being sent back to China than the panda adults again successfully mated, setting another record in the process as the newest cub was born. Liang Liang and visitors to Malaysia's National Zoo should get to enjoy the antics of the as-yet-to-be-named cub for another year before she too will have to be separated from her mum and return to her ancestral homeland in China.
Up next, sports. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is CNN News and Sports. Super Eagles head coach General has ruled out bench warmers from the team that will try to win the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations for a fourth time. Ross says only exceptionally good players playing regularly for their clubs would be included in the Super Eagles finalists for this year's tournament in Egypt. Ross says he has a list of at least 50 players that were under consideration and would be monitored by his assistants in the run-up to Egypt 2019. A senior golf tournament organizer, Nasir Al Qatar, says parading 48 teams at World Cup in 2022 is not yet a concluded decision. He said any move by FIFA to increase the 2022 World Cup to 48 teams will only be made in agreement with host Qatar. Qatar says the country has continued to prepare for a 32-team tournament in 3 years. FIFA is carrying out a study on increasing the number of teams by 16 in 2022 and will announce a final decision in March. The Qatar World Cup, the first in the Middle East, will take place over 28 days in November and December 2022. That is CNN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit the website annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at NN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant evening.